Welcome to the Stormsurf Video Surf Forecast for the week starting Sunday, July 6th. Brought to you by Vunabaka.com, a new surf and residential community in the island of Fiji. First up, let's take a look at significant wave heights for the North Pacific Ocean. Notice, large tropical system, nearing super typhoon status, approaching Taiwan, and expected to not recurve to the northeast. It's a little bit early in the season for that to happen. Otherwise, rather calm pattern. Remnants of the tropical system push up towards Kamchatka, but nothing really happens. And yet another tropical system in the far west Pacific is expected to develop about a week out, make a little bit of progress, but then we're at the end of the run. So for now, a basic, pretty calm pattern in the North Pacific, as would be expected for this time of year. Let's go take a look at the South Pacific. Looking at significant sea heights in South Pacific, a little bit of a system trying to organize off of southern Chile, 28-foot seas, well outside the swell window relative to California. Another little system trying to organize east of New Zealand, but seas only in the 24-foot range. Nothing expected from that. And otherwise, just not a whole lot happening. Let's go take a look at jet stream charts and see what's scheduled to happen here in the next week. Here's the jet stream level charts. These are winds up at about 30,000 feet, a little bit higher. These winds help direct the track of storms when they form and help to support the formation of storms when we get a trough. That is a pocket of wind moving to the north. A little bit of a trough actually as of Sunday afternoon, trying to develop here southeast of New Zealand. Let's put it into motion, see what happens. In fact, we get a pretty decent flow, 110, almost 120 knot winds pushing due north on Monday, carving out a nice trough in this area. This should support gale formation. We'll put that into motion. Notice it starts already getting cut off by Monday night, but still you've just got the jet actually pushes the whole way up from the southern branch up to the northern branch, and you get basically a cut off trough here. That continues into about Tuesday and then dissipates. The flow becomes completely cut off, and you end up with a zonal flow again. The northern branch running pretty much flat across the Pacific, and the southern branch also running basically over Antarctic ice and offering no support for gale development. We just run this out. The same pattern continues into about the weekend. You get a bit of a trough trying to organize here off of Chile, but it doesn't make any real progress, doesn't get very far to the north. All of it's pretty much encased in ice. The ice line's about 65, if not a bit further north than that. And we just roll this out, and oops, and that's the end of it. So basically one trough to look at for the week. Next, let's take a look at the surface level charts. This is surface level pressure. Differences in pressure create winds, and winds ultimately create seas, and seas create swell as those seas move away from the fetch that actually generated them. Two systems of interest at the moment. Small little system here, 45 knot winds pushing north, getting limited traction on the ocean surface. We saw 24-foot seas being generated by this system, and that's about all we're expecting to see. A next system is scheduled right behind. This one here is to be of more interest and actually should help create some seas and create a little bit swell about midweek. 45 knot winds at the moment. Relative to Southern California, pushing up about the 210-degree track and shadowed by Tahiti, and relative to Hawaii, pretty much moving parallel to about the 194, 195-degree track, but maybe good for some sideband swell. We'll roll this out. Notice that fetch here starts moving north, but pretty rapidly deteriorates. Get 35, 40 knot winds, a little blast of 40 knot winds on Monday night, and that's about all there is to it. Notice a secondary little fetch tries to develop 35, 40 knot winds on Wednesday night, but not really pushing north, just sort of hanging there. And roll that out and it dissipates. And then you have high pressure. Notice the high pressure. Notice winds here pushing straight into Antarctica, pretty much locking things down. That's a result of the big ridge in the upper levels here pushing down this way. High pressure is the normal result of that sort of a configuration. Notice, try to get a gale here forming. It just heads right into Antarctica. And we're into just about the end of the window here, and that's it. So as of right now, it looks like one system may be lining up for Hawaii, California, and probably down into Central America. Let's go take a look at these significant wave height charts and see how those winds do in terms of swell generation. So here we are. This is the system currently in play. Actually, you have 26-foot seas here as of 18Z on Sunday. That sort of fades out. Here's the next system organizing, 26-foot seas. Starts pushing north. You get a 28-foot seas. Again, aimed well to the north. Let's check out the Great Circle Pass. 209 Northern California, 212 for Southern California, and Hawaii about 188. Again, for California, all this is shadowed by Tahiti, so that'll significantly cut down on the number of waves per set, even though the fetch itself is moving to the north. And some of the normal size sets will sneak through, but it will not be a very impressive swell, even if everything goes exactly as the models suggest. And by Tuesday, it pretty much dies out, and that's the end of it. Seas below 20 feet. We roll this out. Here's the secondary reforming portion of it, very tiny. Most of the energy is actually pushing south, but just for laughs here, let's take a look. And that's about the 188 degree path relative to Southern California. At least it's unshadowed, but the expectation is not much is going to come of that. Roll this out further. There you go. There's the high pressure system we saw. There's fetch pushing south, or seas pushing south. Nothing coming from that. And roll this out, and that's the end of it. So that's kind of it for the week. That said, there is swell in the water hitting Southern California and Northern California, for that matter, from a very southerly angle. 20-second period swell as of Sunday afternoon, pushing about 3.6, 3.8 feet. One reading to 4 feet pure swell at 19 seconds, Point Loma Buoy in Southern California. Anyway, this system was really quite impressive. As of Saturday night a week ago, that was 40-plus foot seas, building into the 50-foot range on Sunday a week ago. But notice, relative to Southern California, most of the energy was going this way. This is the system that created the swell for the Pico Alto big wave event midweek, and they were perfectly set up. It's sort of sideband energy relative to California. Play that out, and that's pretty much the end of it. Solid size, of course, hit Puerto Escondido and is working its way into Baja at this moment and building in Southern California. So that's kind of the story on that one. Let's go take a look at some long-term data. First up, Southern Oscillation Index. Difference in pressure between Darwin, Australia, and Tahiti. Current numbers daily 12.50. This suggests certainly not El Nino. We had a nice little run of negative numbers there for a week and a half or so, mainly attributable to a series of weak low pressure systems that passed north of Tahiti that pushed the index negative, but that's kind of over for now. We're going to go through a little bit of run of positive numbers, and then a week out there's another small low scheduled for Tahiti. The average did drop down to -5, but that's going to start working its way back towards pretty much neutral territory, and the 90-day running average is just a hair above neutral. So this is not indicative of El Nino. It doesn't suggest that the warm water that's building in the South Pacific, or actually in the East Pacific, is having any effect on the atmosphere in a gross level sense, but the SOI tends to take a while to respond to changes at the ocean surface, and it takes a while for that to actually have an effect on the atmosphere above. Next up, let's take a look at wind anomalies at the 850 millibar level. These winds, at this level, it's supposed to be a pretty good indicator of what's really going on at the surface. And what we have right now is weak to almost modest easterly anomalies developing in the dateline region, almost into the maritime continent, with a pretty much dead neutral pattern in this area. And then we go south of Hawaii, again, still easterly anomalies, and then neutral. Easterly anomalies is what we do not want to see. We want westerly anomalies. Westerly anomalies, especially in the dateline region, are what help move warm water to the east in the form of a Kelvin wave, and we desperately need that right now if El Nino is going to develop. Looking a week out, we see that those easterly anomalies die out. Couple little barbs right there, but for the most part it's a neutral wind pattern in the far west Pacific to the date line, moving south of Hawaii, continues neutral, and this is better. Neutral is certainly better than easterly anomalies, though we would like to see westerly winds, out and out westerly winds, or at least westerly anomalies develop in the far west Pacific. But what the models say and what happens in reality are two different things. Notice this is anomalies from normal, and this is the dateline region here. This is 10 degrees either side of the equator. This is the far west Pacific, and this data is from the TAO array, actual buoys on the ocean surface, and these sensors in this area are active and in fact suggesting that we have westerly anomalies in this region of the equator, which is good news. And this has been going on for 5-6 days in the moderate plus category, probably enough to start getting some warm water moving. I don't know if we call it a Kelvin wave, but enough warm water moving to perhaps start making some traction and filling up the pipe a little bit, so to speak, and we'll get into that in a minute when we get to the subsurface analysis. There's two models we look at to see what's going on for the next 2 weeks. The statistical model projects a dead neutral pattern. This is actually very good news, and even better yet, the dynamic model is now suggesting these blues are what we're calling the active phase of the MJO. It's really outgoing long wave radiation, suggesting suppressed radiation, which means more clouds, which typically means the active phase of the MJO, and that's supposed to be in play. This is much better news than what the models had been suggesting long term for the month of July. And specifically, this model was a huge concern. This is the 40-day upper-level model. The yellows, oranges suggest suppressed potential for precipitation, which suggests the inactive phase of the MJO. And this model, and then the greens, of course, are the active phase of the MJO. It had been suggesting oranges, yellows, basically high pressure over the equatorial Pacific the entire month of July up until about 3 or 4 days ago, and all of a sudden it goes, that's not the case, and it just collapsed that whole pattern, and now it's basically suggesting, no coherent MJO pattern. This is good news, because if El Nino were developing this time of year, that's exactly what you would expect to see, is no El Nino pattern, no anomalies one way or the other, but this sort of continued slow bleed of westerly anomalies in the West Pacific. And that's actually what's kind of happening. So this gives us, one, it makes us seriously doubt any of the models more than a couple of days out, which is always the case when you're looking at the wave models and wind models. But we had hoped that the El Nino models and some of this MJO monitoring stuff had a better handle of things, especially when you have an El Nino developing or supposedly developing. And it's pretty clear that they aren't much better than any of the other models. They get it a couple days before it happens, but after that, they don't really sense what's going on. So regardless, we can sit here and bash the models, but they did finally figure it out. And this seems like a more reasonable pattern given where the atmosphere is at, given where water temperatures are at and all that. So the good news is no supposed easterly anomalies in the month of July, which is a big sigh of relief. And now what we're really hoping for is to see some westerly anomalies develop. In fact, that's occurring right now. So we're actually in a much better place than we thought we were even a week ago. And if you look, this is actuals 850 millibar wind analysis. These are like hindcasts. And notice here, these are westerly anomalies on the equator. This is, this goes back like 5 days or so. So boom, 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 boom. It just continues. This actually suggests a westerly wind burst. Displaced very far to the west. You'd really want to see these winds more in about the 140 to 180 range, but you know what? Any little thing that helps push the ocean that direction is not a bad thing. If it can get a Kelvin wave going, we'll take it any way it can happen. Next up, sea surface temperature anomalies, deviations from normal. Notice, very warm waters here in the equatorial East Pacific. Pretty much the signature triangle here between here, and here, that's basically Peru, the Galapagos, and up into Central America. Nice warm waters in this area, and they're drifting off into the Nino 3.4 region, which is right here. Okay, so this is the actual result of multiple Kelvin waves that developed from westerly wind bursts that were in this area. That occurred January, February, March, and April. Multiple Kelvin waves moved this way, erupted at the surface, and we have a great signature here at the moment. Also, lots of warm water continues off the California coast. A little bit of upwelling here associated with high pressure, clockwise circulation between Hawaii and California, but actually this is much less than normal for this time of year. Basically, this entire North Pacific Ocean is full of warm water except for this little cool track here, and that's where multiple low pressures and westerly winds occurred, and that's also pretty normal. So we're in definitely a warm pattern. The issue is, will it continue? Will there continue to be warm water in this region, and will it hold long enough to start having an impact on the atmosphere above it? As said earlier, several low pressures have made it from here off Japan the whole way into the Gulf of Alaska. One in particular, a week and a half ago or so, actually generated 20-foot seas, which is pretty unusual for late January. But the real key in our mind is the July time frame. That's the transition time frame. We start looking for a position of the North Pacific jet stream. If it's displaced south, if it's showing good coherency in mid to late July, that suggests that something is going on, and that in fact these warm waters are having an impact on the atmosphere above it. There's been little bits and signs here and there, but nothing that we're going to get into any detail yet because it's too early. Later in July, we'll start looking at that data and trying to make some assessment on whether there is an effect developing. Next up, we're taking a close look at sea surface temperature anomalies off Ecuador and Peru. This little area here has been a little bit of a concern in that it was much warmer in this whole area. All of a sudden, cooler anomalies are starting to show up here, and this isn't just neutral. They're actually half a degree below normal, and there's some of that starting to show up along the immediate coast here. Also, pockets of what were above 4-degree anomalies here and here have disappeared. Actually, yesterday there was a little pocket of plus 4 degrees somewhere in this region, but it's gone now. So the question is, how long and how much water is warm water is gonna be staying in this area, or is it gonna erode? The thought is that the big Kelvin wave generated in January, February, March has hit, it's done its thing, and we're sort of in the down cycle of that now. Still warm water gurgling to the surface, but the question is, how much warm water is left in the pipe, how long will it hold, and is there anything coming behind it? Here's the standard chart we look at to look at subsurface temperature anomalies. So the date line is here, Galapagos Islands here, the far West Pacific here, and then this is depth. So we have a pocket of warm anomalies for almost 5 degrees above normal, near about 110. Notice these are the sensors here, and there's definitely a lot of gaps in the array, so it's really hard to tell what's going on, but there's data here, valid data points here and here, and this is the remainder of the big Kelvin wave that hit a month ago or so. Still quite respectable. In any normal situation, we'd be pretty excited about it, and we still are. So it looks like there's good warm water that's going to continue to gurgle up off Ecuador and the Galapagos Islands. What we're really more concerned about at the moment is what's going on back here, or better said, what is not going on back here. We would want to see more warm water starting to fill in here. That would be if there were west winds at the surface here, they would start building a pool of warm water here that would then travel this way and be sort of like backfill energy into this pool here. And we don't see that happening, but the good news is there's still an open pipe here. And with the recent westerly winds, that's good. It's keeping the pipe open. We just need more westerly winds to start the transport of more warm water through this pipe to sort of give some backfill here. Again, it takes anywhere from 2 to 3 months for warm water displaced here to make the entire trip and start gurgling up off the coast here. So if west winds were blowing now, let's say that's the 1st of July, it wouldn't be till October 1st till they start manifesting on the surface in this region. The question is this pool of water going to be able to hold for another 3 months? The thought is probably not. It's good for about a month and a half, and then what happens? The only other possible option is if you just sort of have this general El Nino flow going in the atmosphere and just trades being suppressed, which is clearly the case in the West Pacific, then maybe you do have this steady bleed of 1 degree anomalies coming here, and that could help backfill it to some degree, but we really want to see more energy, and that isn't happening at the moment. Here's a modeled view, same sort of data. Notice it is showing a warmer pocket here, which suggests that the westerly anomalies that have been blowing the past 5 days are building some sort of something here, but we're only talking half a degree to 1 degree. And then here's the other pool that is definitely breaking up. This was all 5+ degree anomalies in this region. It was very solid. Notice it's definitely falling apart now. So the question is, what's going to happen here? We don't know the answer. We don't have much faith in the models. So it's sort of a day-by-day thing. But the concern, again, is that the 3-month time delay it takes for warm water here to make it over here, and the fact that there's literally been no significant westerly wind bursts since probably about the end of April. So May and June were a washout. 2 months of nothing going on. Now we're into July and still not a whole lot happening. Here's a quick look at the Southern Oscillation Index 30-day average. We should have shown this earlier, but notice we were up here in this region in the May and June time frame. Now we've dropped back, and we're still basically just 5 points either side of neutral, but at least we're negative rather than positive. And then here's the giant dip in the SOI back January, February, March that created the massive Kelvin, or actually is symptomatic of the Kelvin wave and westerly wind bursts that we had at that time. And another look, this is actually subsurface profile. It's the Jason 2 satellite, gives you sea height deviations from normal. Positive numbers like these here suggest warm water at depth displacing surface levels up a little bit. So here is the remnants of the Kelvin wave. Not very inspirational at the moment. We're talking 0 to 5 centimeters above normal, and that's it. We were up at 10 plus in this region at the peak of the Kelvin wave. The other little interesting thing, though, is at least we have positive anomalies in the dateline region, which suggests, again, and this is the same region where those westerly winds are blowing, so maybe something is going on here. And finally, our Kelvin wave generation area monitoring tool. This is the high-res GFS model, and these are just actual surface winds. Notice these are easterly winds here in the vicinity of the dateline. Oh, and by the way, this is 3 degrees north, 3 degrees south of the equator, starting at about 140 east, which is way, way over in the far west Pacific, over to the dateline a little bit beyond. This is really where you want westerly anomalies. Anything east of this doesn't do anything for Kelvin wave formation for the most part. So we have 18 or so, almost 20 knot easterly winds here, but we'll just sort of roll this out. Notice it's relatively calm here, and that's all it takes is a relaxation of the trades to create westerly anomalies, and that's all it takes to create a Kelvin wave. So we'll roll this out. We're just looking to see what's going to happen. Notice things stay pretty calm over in this region, and even here by Monday night, the trades start backing off a little bit. Not a lot, but then we get into, I'd say, Wednesday, and things really start collapsing. This is just dead neutral winds here, which would manifest as westerly anomalies. We play that out and continues on into Thursday, Friday, and then we're into, by the weekend, a very calm pattern indeed trade-wise wind for the entire western Pacific in the main Kelvin wave generation area, and that just continues pretty much into Sunday. So this is, again, if one is going to believe the models, which you got to take with a grain of salt, suggests that trades are going to back off even more, that would suggest more westerly anomalies and give us a little hope that more warm water is going to start working its way into the pipe. But July tends to be the transition month, and it can go one way or the other, and that's kind of where we are at the moment. The thought is if this can hold together through July, once we get into August, we're kind of home free, and we'll have some sort of an El Nino. How strong, yet to be determined. But if one wants to look at model data and get a sense of how warm the waters are going to be in the Nino 3.4 region, which is the prime area for monitoring El Nino, the thought is that by late July or let's say mid-August, you're going to be above the 1 degree threshold, and that would pretty much be what we call El Nino, and that's right about the right season-wise August. And then by the time we get into November and December, this El Nino will max out at about 1.5 degrees above normal, which is similar to the 2009-2010 El Nino. That was about a 1.4 or so. And then we get off into the springtime and it starts dropping off. So this is pretty much a standard profile. The question is, how much do you want to believe this? Unknown. Again, trying to forecast anything 3 or 4 or 5 months out is there's not a lot of skill shown in any of these models as best we can tell, but it's a guideline, something to look forward to. Wouldn't take it for gospel though. So that's pretty much it. We see southern hemiswell in the water right now relative to California. Very, very south angle. Only the most exposed breaks getting it, really favoring Southern California. We see another small system forecast east of New Zealand about the middle of this week. Nothing huge. 28-foot seas is it. That's good for 14, 15-second period swell and shadowed relative to California. Probably best for Tahiti and Hawaii. And then after that, really not a whole lot going on. And then the El Nino thing, who knows how that's going to go. It's there. It's hanging on. It's trying to get organized. Westerly anomalies are trying to get some sort of grip on the West Pacific, but nothing that's outstanding. Still, if it was warm, even marginally warm for this winter, that would be way better than the past 3 years and should result. I mean, if it's hanging on and we have those warm waters off Ecuador for months now, by the time, if it can hang on into the fall, then we're probably in for a better winter than we've seen in 3 years or so, which is good news, something to look forward to. So that's pretty much it for this week. We're going to do this again next time. Same place, same channel. Come dial in, check us out. And many thanks to our sponsor, Vunabaca.com, the new residential resort being built in the island of Fiji. Check out their website, Vunabaca.com. It's a really impressive project that's going on. Thanks again. See you next week. Same time, same place. Go get some surf while it's here in the water. Thanks. Bye.